Well, it's tax season again. You know what they say, the sooner you file, the sooner you can get your return. However, if the taxes are kind of confusing you a little bit, perhaps you should pay attention to this next episode. We're talking with Ken from the AARP Foundation Tax-Aide about all of the things that go into filing your taxes, making sure that you can get the best deduction possible and the biggest return if that's a thing coming your way. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Dollars and Cents, Hapo Community Credit Union's Financial Literacy Podcast. It is that time of year again, and some people out there are going to understand what that means. Some people might not. We are approaching tax season, which means a bunch of people I know have already been gathering up documents and legal forms and setting up appointments, and other people are waiting till the last minute. I am somewhere in between on those things. However, if you are more of a last minute person, or if you have some questions, concerns about how tax season and tax prep goes, we have brought on today's guest to help illuminate this situation. We have with us today Ken Albin of the AARP Foundation Tax-Aide, and we are going to talk about the basics of tax prep, some of the maybe a little bit more intricate, and more importantly, where some people out there can get some assistance if they need it. Ken, welcome to the podcast. Tell us a bit about yourself and about the foundation.
Thanks so much, Steve. I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to broadcast for the community here. Yeah, so I've been with Tax-Aide now for 15 years. I live in Richland, and I originally started at Richland Library, but now we're over at the community center, and I manage that site. They call it a local coordinator.
Okay.
I've been the district coordinator as well previously. So we've got 6 sites in the Tri-Cities plus Burbank. So we've got 1 in Richland, we've got 2 in Pasco, the City Hall and the library, 2 in Kennewick, both libraries across from Kennewick High School and down by the Rose Garden on Union Avenue. Mm-hmm. And then we've got the one out in Burbank. And we've tried to expand a couple times. We originally had a space at the Benton City Library, but we lost out on a couple of volunteers, so we've consolidated now to just 6 sites. And we've got over 50 volunteers that volunteer, and we're open all day Monday, half day Tuesday, half day Wednesday, and half day Saturday. So we pretty much can cover most people's needs during the tax season, whether they work or they've got babysitters, or they got kids in school, or whatever the case may be.
Okay, so this obviously with Tax-Aide as the name, helping people prepare, file their taxes out and about. For anybody out there listening that wants to take advantage of this service, we're going to go ahead and post a link in the podcast description out to the Tax-Aide site, as well as probably put some details up there about the times and location availability. You did bring us a handout that has all of this information. We're going to make sure we get that out with to everybody out there. Now, you are affiliated with AARP. I am assuming that means that the majority of your clientele are in the retired age, retirees.
I would say, no, I actually say probably about 40% of our taxpayers are not in retirement age.
Okay.
And we see more and more of people in the working class that are coming. And again, we're open to everybody. I mean, when we founded, our mission was to help low and middle income taxpayers 50 years and older, but it's an open door policy, and anybody walks in, we're going to do their taxes if it's within the scope of our services.
Okay. So I feel like that's a great thing for people to know. Sponsored by AARP Foundation does not mean purely retired persons affiliated with this, but that is great to know, open to anybody in the community to come out and help work with that. In fact, I believe when we were chatting before we got on air here, you mentioned that you're going to be out at WSU branch campus here soon.
Yeah, we've got they contacted us about 2 weeks ago, sort of like the same time you did, and they want to have a little colloquium there for the students to just walk up, and we've got 4 volunteers, including myself, that'll be there and just talk to them about taxes and their personal situation. Because we've found we get many first-time taxpayers. They've been riding their parents' coattails for a long time, and now it's their turn, and they have no idea what's going on. And so it's a learning experience.
I remember those days myself. I absolutely rode my parents' coattails when it came to the first couple of tax seasons. In fact, I moved directly from them doing anything for me into me just utilizing their tax accountant and then being like, okay, I should probably figure this out myself. But, and it's one of those things, having been through it a couple of times, knowing that I needed to bring some particular documents with me, I think helped ease me into it. But for a lot of people out there, this may be kind of a ice bath challenge type of a situation. The cold water is about to hit, and you're like, oh, that has to be done by April 15th. Oh, what do I have to do? So for people out there getting into this for the first time, as well as the WSU students that you're about to go help out with this, what are some of the basic bits of information just to help prep them for this season?
Well, there are a couple of premises. The first thing is you need a government-issued ID. That can be a passport, can be a driver's license, something that when you come in, we can correlate your face to a picture on a government-issued ID, and also it has your date of birth and sometimes your address. And the second thing is a Social Security card.
Okay.
And you have no idea how many times people walk in, they've got all these papers, and the one thing they don't have is a Social Security card. And the importance for that is that that's the official record that the IRS identifies you with. So, so I had a taxpayer on Monday, her name, but her Social Security card says, so if we had filed a return with, the IRS would probably kick that return out because they recognize. And so that's one of the first things. Then the second thing is to bring everything that you got from early December through the end of February, whether you think it's applicable or not. Because sometimes people get a mailing from, say, HAPO. HAPO issues interest statements by the end of January. And they may think, well, it's just an advertisement for something, and they throw it in the trash. Well, you need that piece of paper that HAPO sent you.
I know I've gotten myself into the habit of starting, like you said, early December, probably a little bit earlier than that, just because I'm used to it at this point, keeping my eye on envelopes that have important tax information enclosed and making sure that I pull those aside, making sure that I open those. I'm like, this isn't just an advertisement. It's not just a monthly statement. Looking for some of those items. You mentioned the interest statement, the 1099 INT forms that you get, along with an employer W-2. I know what now some of the other ones that people should keep an eye out for. 1095C, I believe, is the health savings or some of those spendings. What are some of the other ones that maybe some people out there don't think about, but they should keep an eye out for, to pull aside, set into a folder, so that when they do get ready to come in for tax prep, they can just grab that folder and be pretty confident they have what they need?
Yeah, so, I mean, you had a good start. So in addition to the interest, some banks and credit unions issue dividends. So it's called a 1099 div. And for retirees, every retirement they either get a Social Security statement and what's called a 1099-R,
okay,
which is for retirement. Also covers annuity payments that are made. The other thing, though, is that when people come in to get their taxes done by us, we have a 3-page questionnaire that goes through every single type of income source and expense source that you may have. Like a student, they have what's called a 1098-T as in Tom.
Okay.
That's issued by the educational institution, whether it's online or in person, and that shows how much they paid for tuition and fees for the year, and if they got a scholarship. And so that's important too, because you get credit for educational expense. So like I said, we go through this 3-page questionnaire. The taxpayer fills it out, and then we sit with them and we do what's called due diligence. We ask them open-ended questions and try and figure out if they've got all the paperwork. And sometimes, they may not be familiar with the acronym in today's world, but when we describe, did you get any interest from a credit union? Oh, yeah. Well, that's on an INT form. I don't see that here. Oh, maybe that's at home. I said, well, you could also bring in your end-of-year statement from the credit union, and it'll show the interest paid.
Yeah, so, interest year to date.
Right. So even if they think they've got everything, many times they don't, and we'll have to send them away, and they'll come back again with the other information. And we'll make a note of that so we know where we left off with them.
Okay. And that 3-page questionnaire sounds, excuse me, sounds like it's a great starting point, because it can probably prompt you to think about things that you didn't know were important come tax time.
Oh, yes. And in fact, the questionnaire actually goes right down when you talk about a Form 1040, which is what is filed for your tax return. It starts with wages and goes all the way down through to Social Security and retirement and other expenses. And the questionnaire just follows that all the way down. So it actually helps the tax counselor when they start inputting information. They can look at the questionnaire, they look at the documents, and they go right to tax software and fill things down.
Top to bottom, page 1 through page X, however many there may be, being able to just kind of flip through, look at the numbers.
Right.
I've watched my tax accountants and tax prep professionals, when I've worked with them, take the pile of papers that I bring in, sometimes more or less organized, and shuffle them about. And they're probably accomplishing that same task right then, putting everything in order so that they can then go top to bottom on the form, filling out all the pieces of information that are needed there.
Yeah, because many times taxpayer will bring in, like you said, stack of envelopes. The first thing we say is, please remove them out of the envelope, and then we'll just spread them out over the table, just so we know, as we're going through the questions with the taxpayer, we can look at the forms and say, well, I see you've got 4 retirements. And we also ask the taxpayer, if they've been here before, is to bring last year's return. So we can look at last year's return and say, well, you only had 5. You had 5 retirement forms last year. Why do you only have 4? Oh, whoops.
I might need to go find myself another document. Or maybe it's, I actually ended that one. I cashed the whole thing out, and now we're only down to 4. But that's an answer, yeah.
Or they rolled over something to a Roth or some other document that they wouldn't get a tax form from the fiduciary. So, but you're right. Many people will actually sort their documents and have paper clips or staples. And the first thing we do is we take the paper clips out and the staples out, and we put them all around. Or I've seen husband and wives, the husband says, well, here's my papers, and the wife says, here's my papers.
Now we're going to shuffle them all together.
Yes, you have like shuffling 2 decks of cards. And you just see the people just go crazy. What do you do? I says, well, you get all these papers back and you can put them together as you want, but I need them in a certain order for me to be able to do my job.
A little organized chaos or chaotic organization. Take your pick on how that one works for you. But making sure that you've got all of those pieces of paper, all of the information about your income streams. One of the things that we haven't really mentioned yet are other items like deductions, charitable giving, interest payments on mortgages. There's so many different documents and whatnot that people out there might be able to gather and bring in, take advantage of. And if you don't declare those, it's not like the government's going to be mad if they don't give you money back.
Yeah. The IRS is their entire focus is income. Okay, if you don't have any deductions, that's fine with them. So, but if you don't report income, they will send you what I call a love letter that says, you may want to think about this.
Yeah, I think this is kind of where the anxiety for a lot of people comes when it comes to the IRS, those love letters, because it's kind of a strangely open book test that they're giving you. They know the answer, but they require you to tell them what it is. How much money did you make? We already know. Somebody else told us too. We can't tell you what that is though. And then it comes down with the part for you. How are you going to cut into that income and that taxable base with your deductions to try and play the game that a lot of the corporations and the billionaires get to play with? How many deductions, how many write-offs do I have to bring that taxable value down so that maybe not only am I paying less into the government, or maybe I'm getting some of that back that's already been withheld from my paychecks.
Yeah, but the IRS, though, in that letter, they call them notices, and they will actually state what they think is missing. So it's not like, Steve, they're holding a carrot and waiting for you to bite at it. But they'll say, we have record that you received retirement income from this source.
And you didn't disclose that in your submission. So at least they give you a bit of a chance. So the love letters, the notices aren't quite as scary as some people out there might be making them out to be. Right,
but they can be confusing. And if it's during a tax season, we can definitely go through the letter with them and help them resolve it. When it's off season, they would have to call our national number and get some support that way.
I was going to say, but there's still support available to people even through the national number if there's not local volunteers out helping out or available immediately.
And the wait time on the national number is a lot shorter than it is for the IRS. I can tell you that for sure.
That is somehow not shocking to me at all.
Yeah. When we talk about deductions, one of the things that people forget about is medical deductions. You've got your normal health insurance, but you may have dental insurance. You may have prescriptions that you've bought that you go have copay for, or other things. You may have to go to the doctor a lot, or have to drive out of town. Like I'm a kidney transplant, so I had to drive to Spokane to get my kidney, and then go every 3 weeks back for trips, and that's called medical mileage.
Okay,
that's part of your medical expense. So that's why you talked about keeping records. It starts really January 1 and ends December 31st, and then you start getting all the envelopes. But it's important for us that you bring more information than less, because we can always say, well, this is not going to be applicable to your return. But if we don't know, we don't know. And that's the whole idea of the 3-page questionnaire, is to find out what we don't know that you know, to make sure we're getting the best picture for you for your tax return.
And that kind of comes down to another thing that some people out there have probably heard about, maybe don't quite understand: itemized versus standard deduction. In today's filing, I believe our standard deduction is, how much is that at this point for a single versus married?
So, well, it also is age dependent. So if you're talking about somebody that's single, under age 65, it's roughly $16,000.
Okay.
Is a standard deduction. Married filing jointly, it's $32,000. And then when you get over 65, they add a couple of $1,000s to it. And the other nice thing about when you're 65 and over, when Congress passed the big, beautiful bill in September, they added, now Donald Trump talks about no tax on Social Security, but what they actually did is they added a $6,000 deduction per person.
Okay.
So for single over 65, you get it's $18,000 plus an extra $6,000. So you actually is $24,000 is your deduction. For married filing jointly, you've got $35,000, and then you actually get 2 times 6 is $12,000. So it's $45,000 is your standard deduction.
Okay.
And it's really tough in these times for somebody to come up with itemized deductions of $45,000.
So
and,
at that
you
point,
mentioned about charitable donations, and this year it's always been on the itemized deduction sheet, but starting next year, Congress passed for 3 years that you can actually add to your deduction without itemizing up to $1,000 of charitable contributions per person, or $2,000 per married filing jointly. So again, even though you're not going to itemize for, let's say, tax year 2026, all those charitable contributions can be used as part of your standard deduction.
Okay, so these are some things that people should definitely be keeping an eye on, keeping track of, because usually when you make a charitable donation, you're going to get a receipt from them, but they're not really going to issue you a tax form. So you're going to want to keep the information about, hey, here's what I donated, here's who I donated that to, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What other items are most people out there going to be able to take advantage of as far as standard deductions? I know there's typically the child credit that I don't ever get to take advantage of because my pets don't count.
That's something that they still haven't passed in Congress.
What are married with kids looking at as far as like the deductions for dependents?
Well, of course, it depends on age.
Mm-hmm.
So if we talk about kids under 17, they get the child tax credit, which is partly refundable, which means you get the part that you don't use back, and non-refundable, which is used to offset your taxes.
Okay.
Depending on your income level, you get the earned income tax credit, and in Washington State, they have the similar thing called the Working Families Tax Credit. So when you file your return, if you've got kids, depending on your income level, you can get credit from not only the IRS, but you actually get it from Washington State.
Okay. So I believe at this point we've covered 3 kind of separate categories of stuff that can go into a tax filing. 1, incomes, of course, that's the very first part that the IRS cares so much about. 2, deductions, things that you've done that can reduce your taxable income. And now 3, tax credits, which are basically ways of, once again, getting additional deductions, but through other programs. I know a couple of years ago, I was able to take advantage of a solar credit when I had solar panels installed on my home as a tax credit.
Some of those credits, the bill that was passed by Congress in September sort of ended them in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
But what was added, for example, is if people bought a new car that was manufactured in the U.S. and they don't pay for it in cash, and they're rent and they're paying on a loan,
mm-hmm.
they can actually use some of that interest that they paid as a deduction.
Okay. So utilizing car loan interest similar to home loan interest as deduction.
Right.
Okay.
And the other big credit is, so we talked about parents with kids under 17. Over 17, now you're talking about kids in college.
Mm-hmm.
And so in college, you've got student loan interest, which is a deduction that reduces your income, your adjusted gross income. And you've got the education credit. If they're in their first 4 years and attending school for at least half-time, there's the American Opportunities Credit, which gives the taxpayer up to $4,000 of credit against their taxes. And then after that, there's a Lifetime Learning credit, which is a 20% credit up to $2,000. So there are things available even after the kids leave home.
Okay.
Up until, and a couple of years ago, it used to be up until age 24. It's now extended to age 26.
Okay.
So if you got a kid that wants to be a professional student, is in school for the 5 or 6 years, especially if they're an athlete, nowadays athletes want to be in school for 6 years.
Going to say, yeah, if you're a starting college athlete, say on a football program, a baseball program, basketball, you've got 4 years of eligibility, but there's also what everybody would understand as the redshirt year, and then possibly the medical redshirt year, and then their ability to shift university. Yeah, they could absolutely become a professional student athlete at that point in time.
And also the NCAA also during the COVID period gave athletes an extra year as well, because sports weren't being played during the COVID year.
Yeah. So bumping that out to 26 as a kid, maybe even taking a gap year between high school and college, and then going out into college, that's going to help out with either the college student or the parents if they're still claiming a dependent at that point in time.
Right.
I know that one of the other things that was talked about, and I'm kind of curious how it got implemented because I don't know off the top of my head, was taxing overtime. I know that was another one of the conversation pieces in the campaign trail. Did that get implemented with the other deductions?
Yeah, because that's probably, we talked about increasing the deductions for age 65 and over, and no tax on
Social Security. Yep.
And but the no tax on tips, it's sort of a misnomer, but you get up to the $12,500 of tips that can be used to offset your income, and that's a deduction.
Okay.
It's not an itemized deduction; it's actually a off-the-top deduction.
So for anybody that's out there receiving tips, they need to bring receipts, quote unquote, for what they earned in tips so that they can utilize that deduction.
Well, we found those a lot of the restaurants that we're familiar with in this area on their W-2 statement in box 7, they actually put the amount of tips that were paid.
Oh, okay.
So it's already there, and so it makes it a lot easier, and they can see it. The other thing is that we're seeing a lot more of than tips is the no tax on overtime, and it's the part that's not taxable is what they call the premium portion. So let's say you work a standard 40-hour week. That's part of what's called the Fair Standards Labor Act.
Okay.
So you're guaranteed 40 hours a week. If you're working overtime, normally most companies will pay you time and a half. So the half time is called premium overtime, and that's the portion that's deductible.
Okay. So while my standard salary or my standard hourly rate is still going to be taxed, that additional above and beyond is
it's taxed, but you can deduct it.
Okay.
Okay, so let's say you're making $30 an hour, and you work 10 hours of overtime during the year. So that's $300. So that's $300, but you get the premium time and a half. So you'd actually get paid $450. So the $300 gets taxed normally, and the extra $150 you deduct, so you don't get taxed on that.
Nice.
And if you were working, let's say HAPO made you work on Christmas Day to get everything done before the end of the year, and it paid you double time, so that extra whole time would be deductible.
Okay, so anything above and beyond the standard rate then gets to become this deductible.
Yeah, they call it premium overtime.
Okay. So while it's not technically no tax on overtime, it does actually still matter and add up in the long run.
$25,000.
There we go. Yes. And if you're pulling in $25,000 worth of premium overtime pay, good on you for taking advantage of those extra hours. And hopefully, if you've been listening to us, you're stashing that away into a solid investment or a savings account so that you can build up that good, solid financial foundation we've talked about so many times. CDs are a great place to put money if you're afraid of the stock market. Yep.
CDs are a great way to do it.
Yeah, it keeps you from pulling out the money in order to go spend it on extra coffee or vacations, which is what I would spend mine on. So we've covered a lot of interesting things, a couple of hot topics as far as the no tax, quote unquote, on the Social Security, tips, overtime.
Well, again, it's not no tax on Social Security. It's for 65 and older, you get a $6,000 deduction per person.
Yeah, exactly. And I think in the campaign trail or the conversations, it was always referenced as no tax on those things. And it's been implemented in ways that are very helpful for people. But calling it no tax on such a thing isn't exactly the case. Which is why a lot of people need to come and have a conversation with a tax professional and an aide, because you can grant that clarity to them on what somebody may have told them in passing versus what the actual reality of the situation is when it comes time to file.
Yeah, I think the word's pretty much gotten out now, Steve, that it's deductions. So even if their taxable portion of Social Security is less than $6,000. They still get the $6,000. So it's a win-win, really.
Absolutely. No, and I think it's just that understanding what it is that you're getting when you come in. Because I can imagine some people out there like hearing a rumor about one thing or another and arriving expecting it to be one thing, and it's a little bit different. And maybe getting a little annoyed, but at the understanding of it, like, hey, no, you're still getting a lot out of this. That's a fantastic tool to take advantage of. Anytime you can take advantage of a deduction or a credit, do so.
All our tax counselors basically do all hand holding. I mean, we're there to help the taxpayer. We're not there. We don't get a finder's fee or something like that. We're there to help them to get the best situation that they can, and to try and either minimize the total tax they do or maximize how much money they get back.
Absolutely. Are there any other hot topics that have come around in this year, the last year or two, that we haven't covered that you can think of?
Well, in addition to just the normal taxpayer that either works or they're in retirement, we also do returns for self-employed people, like people that work for DoorDash or Uber or Lyft or Instacart. And as long as their income is being reported against their Social Security number, that's called self-employed income, we can actually do their tax return. And when Tri-City Herald was booming and we had a lot of paper deliverers, they would come in and we would do their tax return for them. And we do that now. We see a lot more of the Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash and Instacart people come in to get their taxes done by us.
And I can tell you from personal experience, I was self-employed for a while. It is definitely nice to have somebody to help you through some of those items and to remind you to set aside some of the income that you're making to pay those taxes over time.
Yeah, because that's one of the things. You're right, Steve. With self-employment is nobody withholds tax like they do for work on a W-2. So you actually have to pay approximately 15% of all your income right out the top for self-employment tax.
Yep. So I know for me, to handle that, when I would deposit my checks, I would take 30% of everything and I would move it into a separate account that was earmarked just for paying taxes, which should have been, and generally speaking was, more than enough to cover what I was doing on my own. Because like you said, 15% right off the top. And then beyond that, I was also filing jointly with my wife, and there our income and everything else became kind of this convoluted mishmash of employed versus self-employed versus all of that together. It ended up being, like I said, very nice to have somebody to assist in organizing all of that information when it starts to get a little convoluted like that.
Yeah, well, even though I'm retired, I'm a sports official, so which makes me a self-employed individual. And there are a lot of people in the Tri-Cities that are sports officials in the various sports we have. Mm-hmm. And, this is for those people that are listening today or watching on your YouTube channel, we can do their tax return. I mean, I know a guy that I did his tax return. He's a volleyball official, and I did his tax return for 10 years straight before he retired. And he really appreciated it because it can get, as you said, Steve, kind of extended with all the different deductions that you can use, and it's just not income.
Yeah, and again, like just having to remember how to organize all those things year in, year out, keep track of everything that's coming in. Assistance is always useful.
So, we're really sort of at the tail end of the tax season. I mean, we're about 6 weeks in as of this Saturday, and we're only open for 4 more weeks. Our site is. So we go by appointments, and we really don't have that many more appointments open. But we can still provide tax information for people. My phone number is 509-593-0416, and that's a Google phone that has a voicemail message.
Okay.
And I can help people out either over the phone or I'm at 2 different sites up until April 15th, and they can come in and ask questions even if we can't do their tax return.
Yeah, if somebody's available, help them out a little bit, get them going in the right way. We also have AARPFoundation.org/tax-aide as an online tool that people can go to.
Right.
And then as you mentioned, the local sites, Burbank Public Library, Pasco City Hall, the Keewaydin Park Public Library in Kennewick, the Pasco Public Library, Richland Community Center, and then the Kennewick Public Library on Union Street as well, here in the Tri-Cities. And I'm assuming that there are going to be tax-aide locations around the country as well, not just here locally.
Oh, yeah. In the state of Washington, we have what's called districts, and there are 111 districts. No, there are 26 districts and 111 sites throughout the state. We're called District 11, and we've got 6 sites. And we did roughly 2,000 tax returns this past year, and we're actually about the 5th largest district in the state. Of course, Seattle area.
Yeah, not shocking.
Yeah, but they've got quite a few districts there. And the one thing that also to mention is that we also do Oregon taxes. We got several people, since we're so close to the Oregon border, we have people in the Tri-Cities that will work in Oregon, but live here in the Tri-Cities, or we'll have people in Oregon that come up, and so we can do Oregon non-resident tax and full year tax returns.
And I'm assuming that on the AARP Foundation Tax-Aide site, that if people are listening from outside of Washington, Oregon area, that they can find their own districts up on the website and be able to get contact information to get out, set up appointments if they're still available, or reach out to your local volunteers in those regions in order to check it out, because I know we will get some people around the country that are tuning in, because we aren't just broadcasting to the Tri-Cities area, but these services should be available in those other districts. Jump online, make sure that you can track down where your district is, and check to see if there are appointments available if you're still looking to find assistance getting your tax prep filed. Ken, I think we're getting pretty close to the end of our topics here. Do you have any final thoughts or comments for people listening?
Okay, well, first thing is when you talked about people outside of our local area, AARP Tax-Aide has 36,000 volunteers throughout the country, and we're in all 50 states plus Washington, D.C. And the one nice thing is we have what's called the State Tax Assistant Program. So if you're, let's say we've had people that live in Arizona and then they come up to Washington State and they want to get their taxes done, we can actually do their federal return, then request assistance from Arizona and get their Arizona taxes done while they're still here in the Tri-Cities. And we have that reciprocity for about 25 states throughout the country. So it is, we are nationwide.
Very cool.
And as I said, even though we've got roughly 50 volunteers here in the Tri-Cities, we always need volunteers. Even if you don't know anything about taxes, I mean, I'm an engineer by trade, but but I've been doing my taxes for a long time, some 60 years or something like that. But even if you don't know anything about taxes, we have a training program in January that gets you certified. So we've got many people, housewives, retired people, people that are working that want to help out the community, give back. You know, a lot of, in today's world, it's always good to give back to the community. And so we're always looking for people to volunteer. We also have something called a client facilitator. So when somebody comes to the site, there's somebody that greets them and tells them everything about the program before they ever get their taxes done. The whole idea is to put people at ease, so when they get their taxes done, they feel good about what we've done for them and know that they're getting a fair shake, and we want to see them come back. But the strength of our program throughout the country is volunteers. So again, if somebody would like to volunteer, please give me a call, 509-593-0416. And we look forward to helping everybody out this year. And if not this year, we'll be at the same sites next year. So thanks for having us. We appreciate the opportunity to broadcast our services and help the community.
Absolutely. That is one of the things that we love to do as well, is to reach back out into and help the community and get amazing programs like yours out there to the listeners who may not have heard that you guys are around there. Again, volunteers always welcome. And giving back to the community is a fantastic feeling. If you haven't done it, go out and volunteer, do something fun. Ken, thank you so much for showing up, talking taxes with us today. And until next time, this has been Dollars and Cents, Hapo Community Credit Union's Financial Literacy Podcast.